Christina from the DIYmommy.com, and today I want to share with you some DIY ideas that will help you reduce your single-use plastic. So earlier this week, our Prime Minister announced that we are going to try to eliminate many single-use plastic items here in Canada over the next few years, as early as 2021. I think this is fantastic, and I think it's a move in the right direction for our environment, for our world. So while I know I do not do this perfectly, me and my family have been trying to eliminate single-use plastic items in our home this past few months. So we ditched all of our plastic straws. We have definitely cut down on our use of things like Ziploc bags and saran wrap. And I've made a few things that I have loved using in our kitchen to help reduce these single-use plastic items. And these are so fun to make. They're all pretty straightforward and easy, and lots of them turned out super cute. So let's get started. First, I want to show you how to make beeswax wraps. Now, these are a great alternative to plastic cling wrap. They're great to put over bowls or cover cheese or leftovers, and they're very simple to make. So first of all, find 100% cotton fabric. I just used scraps from my fabric stash, and then you'll need some beeswax. I got some from my honey making neighbors. Also, you'll need some jojoba oil, and I found mine on Amazon. I will link to it down in the description box below. Next, you're going to cut some fabric squares to the sizes you desire. I made 3 different sizes of beeswax wraps that I'm loving right now: a 13-inch size, a 10-inch size, and a 7-inch size. So just use a hard ruler and a pencil to create your squares, and then cut them out with regular scissors. Now what I do is I cut them out about a 1/2 inch larger, so I cut mine out to be 7.5 inches, 10.5 inches, and 13.5 inches, because I trim them down later with some pinking shears. You can do that, or you can cut them with pinking shears right away. It's totally up to you. However, I do find trimming them later works really well. Next, you're going to take your beeswax and you're going to grate it with one of these fantastic graters with the cover. I got mine at IKEA. Now, you can buy beeswax pellets instead, but I really like how the beeswax spreads when it's grated like this instead. It's totally up to you. I will leave some options down below in that description box. Next, put an old towel over your ironing board and then put some parchment paper down. And then you're going to put your square of cotton fabric on top of that and sprinkle some beeswax over top of your fabric. It depends on the size of your beeswax wrap, but for this one's a 10-inch size. I used probably about 2 tablespoons of the shredded beeswax. You basically just want to cover the whole square of fabric. Next, take the jojoba oil and just dot it all over your beeswax wrap like this. I probably used between 15 and 20 dots of my jojoba oil. Then put a piece of parchment paper over top like this, and then take a hot iron and start ironing your beeswax. Now, you don't want it too hot. You could probably just put your iron at the cotton setting and then just start ironing your beeswax. It has a very low melting point, so you'll start to see it melt right away. And you'll be able to see through the parchment paper your beeswax melting through the fabric, and just kind of push it along with your iron like I'm doing here. Just ensure that your whole beeswax wrap is covered. If you're finding that you didn't put enough beeswax on your fabric, you can just gently lift off that parchment paper and sprinkle some more beeswax on top. You just want your whole entire piece of cotton covered with beeswax so that your piece is nice and sticky when you're all finished. When your wrap is nice and cool, you can remove the parchment paper on top and then carefully remove the wrap from the bottom of the parchment paper. Definitely make sure that it is relatively cool before you do this. You can remove any excess wax off the edges like I'm doing here, and you can save it for later. This is when I take my pinking shears. They're those zigzaggy shears that you can use to help the fabric not fray, and then I trim all the way around my beeswax wrap like I'm doing here. So I'm basically cutting about a 1/4 inch of fabric all the way around, trimming everything really nicely, and I love the finish that this gives. I do find that this pinking shear method, trimming it after, really helps my beeswax wraps not fray and keeps them lasting long. So here is my 13-inch square beeswax wrap, here's my 10-inch, and here is my 7-inch. So the large one, the 13-inch size, I like using it over bowls. So the warmth of your fingers is going to warm up that beeswax and make it nice and sticky. So if you want it to cling like cling wrap, just make sure to press it with your warm hands, and it should do really closely to what cling wrap does and cling to most any surfaces. Just push it nice and gently with your fingers to warm it up a little bit. I also really like using mine for cheese. I think that they preserve the cheese really well. So I fold it up like a little present and then push the sides in with my warm fingers and activate that beeswax, and they stay quite nicely in my fridge just like this. To wash the beeswax wraps, you just have to rinse them under cold water. Don't use hot because again, they have a really low melting point. So you just want to use cold water and then let them hang to dry. The next DIY I want to show you is a simple bowl cover. This is also another great alternative to cling wrap. I'm just using almost like a windbreaker fabric. It has a plasticky coating on both sides. You can really use whatever fabric you want. If you want to use this as a bowl cover, you're putting over a bowl when you're proofing yeast bread dough, you could use a 100% cotton fabric. So I'm just using my bowl, putting it upside down on top of the fabric and tracing a circle all the way around. Next, add about 1.5 to 2 inches to the edge of that circle you just created and make some marks with a pencil. After that, trace those marks so you are marking a larger circle. This one here, you'll see I only did 1 inch. I should have done 1.5 to 2 inches. It wasn't quite as long. It didn't reach around the bowl as much as I wanted to. So make sure when you're making yours to make this 1.5 to 2 inches larger than your bowl. I used pinking shear so I didn't have to do any hemming. Next, take 1/4 inch elastic and wrap it around your bowl like I'm doing here and kind of tug at it so it's nice and tight. Make a mark with your finger and then cut it off with some scissors. So just for reference, this bowl is 9 inches across and my elastic ended up to be about 24 inches long. Next, take your circle and take your elastic, fold your elastic in half and make a mark on it with a stick pin. And then attach one end of your elastic to one side of the bowl, of the fabric rather, and then attach it with a stick pin. Halfway around the fabric circle, attach the elastic where you marked the half, just like this. And then mark 1/4 of the elastic and put the elastic there. So basically, I'm just pinning the elastic in 4 parts to 4 parts of my circle. Because the elastic is smaller in circumference than the circle of fabric, you're going to want to make these markings so as you're sewing, you can pull that elastic along and it's still going to be evenly spread around your circle. So once everything is pinned onto my fabric circle like this, take your sewing machine and start sewing that elastic to the fabric. So I'm leaving about 1/2 inch of fabric on the outer edge of my bowl cover like I'm doing here, and I'm using a zigzag stitch to attach the elastic to the fabric. And just make sure to pull that elastic as you're going around so that it's evenly distributed throughout that fabric circle. Once all of your elastic is sewn to the circle, just make sure to backstitch at the end to keep it on to that fabric nicely. And then that's it. It's a really simple sewing project. And I love how this covers my bowls without having to use that plastic cling wrap. Like I said, I would probably make yours a little bit longer. Again, 1.5 to 2 inches larger than the bowl. This one did work, but I wish it was a little bit further over the bowl on the sides. Again, this fabric was from my stash too. I used to sew lots of baby clothes and I was able to use this for something for our kitchen. The final DIY I want to show you are some reusable snack bags. I love using these for kids' school lunches. So I'm using laminated cotton fabric. It's 100% cotton and it has this plasticky coating, but really use whatever fabric you feel comfortable using or 2 different types of fabric. This is really up to you and what works the best for your family. I will leave some links to different fabrics you could use for this DIY down in that description box below. Next, cut out 2 rectangles of your fabric that measure about 16.5 inches tall by 7.5 inches wide. So I just used a hard ruler to make this shape and I marked it with a pencil, and then I used my first rectangle as a pattern to cut out my second rectangle. You could also make a pattern out of paper or parchment paper and then keep that so that you have a square that's already the right size to recreate lots and lots of snack bags for your family. If your fabric needs ironing, do it now because you can only iron on the cotton side of this type of fabric. You can't iron on the plasticky side, and use the cotton setting on your iron to iron everything nice and flat. Then put the right sides of your fabric together just like this and sew along the outer perimeter. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure to leave one end of the snack bag open, so leave one short end of the snack bag open. Next, clip the corners diagonally like this. This helps make your snack bag corners nice and smooth, and then turn your snack bag right side out. Make sure to push out those corners with your finger or with some dull scissors. Then, since you can't iron the plasticky side of this fabric, just use your fingers to press open the seams as best you can. I found that wetting my fingers slightly with water helped this process. Then turn the open end of your snack bag in like this, about 1/2 inch, and again use the finger pressing method to press it closed. And these don't have to be completely perfect. They always turn out quite well when I make them, even if I make them quickly. What you're going to do now is you're going to sew that opening shut. Sew it about 1/4 inch from the edge of my fabric. Now, sometimes this laminated cotton is a little tricky to sew because it is so sticky. So I will leave a couple tricks down in the description box below. You could get a special sort of presser foot. You can also use painter's tape. There's a couple different methods. Next, cut some hook and loop tape to about 6 inches long and take the hook side and put it about 1/2 inch from the top of one side of your snack bag, the short side, and stitch that on with your sewing machine as well. So I stitch all the way around the perimeter of my hook tape, and I leave about 1/4 inch on the sides of it. And again, you might just have to pull your fabric along gently because it is sticky, or use a special presser foot. So I'm sewing the hook side on this side of my snack bag, and then I'm sewing the softer loop side on the other side of my fabric, about 2.5 inches from the edge. And then when you fold one side up like this, the other side is going to attach, and I'm kind of overlapping. I'm leaving about 2.5 inches of fabric on the top like this, so that I have room for my top flap to attach to my bottom. And then the final step is you're just going to sew those sides together. So I sew about 1/4 inch from the edge with my sewing machine, and once you sew the left side and the right side together, you create a very simple double-sided snack bag. Here's one that I made 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago this summer, and you can see that it's holding up really well. I just hand wash these after we have snacks in them with cold water. I've even put them in the dishwasher. They last really well, and I use them for snacks for my kids for school. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope you found these tutorials interesting and helpful. Let me know down in those comments below which of these items was your favorite. I'd also love to hear the ways that you and your family are reducing single-use plastic in your home. I could definitely use all the ideas and inspiration I could get as me and my family are on this journey ourselves. I think every little bit counts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more DIY and decor ideas on a budget. And if you want to keep watching some more DIY and decor ideas, I will leave some of my favorite videos up here for you.